Today I'm looking at a loop pedal that I've never discussed here on the channel before, and that is the TC Electronic Ditto X4. Hello folks, my name's Townsend and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video I'm going to be taking a look at a loop pedal that I've never looked at before, and those of you who have been around for a while will know that my loop pedal of choice is usually the Boss RC500, and before that I was using the RC30. And I've never looked at any other loop pedals other than the Boss stuff because I've always been so happy with the way that they work. But my friend said to me the other day that he owns a TC Electronics Ditto X4. And he said that I could borrow it, so I thought it'd be a perfect opportunity to make a video, a loop-based video, which people have been asking for. And I was actually today going to make a new loop cover, which I would then do a tutorial on, but you might be able to hear that I'm suffering from a little bit of a sore throat and a cold today. So I thought the best thing to do would be to look at this today, look at what it can do, look how it differs in comparison to the Boss stuff. So this is it. This is the Ditto X4. As you can see on the box, it's not a very familiar layout when we're used to looking at the Boss stuff, but I'm going to get it opened up, and we've got charging cable. It's not actually a charging cable, it's a power cable. Nice and compact, a lot better than the Line 6 stuff, I've got to say, because that stuff tends to be terribly designed, but the Boss stuff's always really good, so we're not too bothered about that. And then we've got the pedal itself, and I have got no interest in what's in this box, so I'm going to chuck it down here. So this is the Ditto X4, and the layout is kind of straightforward. You've got four big knobs at the top there. You've got loop 1, loop 2, so they're both the levels for the respective loops. It's a dual track looper. And then decay. Now what decay does is it acts kind of like a delay pedal would, in that with the decay all the way up, this is going to act just like a normal loop pedal would, where the loops that are playing will indefinitely keep playing, they'll keep looping over. And as you turn the decay down, as you add new loops to these, new sort of dubs to this, the oldest one will drop in volume so that eventually they'll decay away and disappear completely. So that could be really cool if you're doing like ambient stuff with electric guitar. And then the fourth knob over here is the effects knob, which lets us select between the various effects that are built into this pedal, which we'll look at in a little while. And then at the front, you've got the buttons for loop 1, so record, dub, play button for loop 1, record, dub, play button for loop 2, stop button, which I believe affects both of the loops, and the effect button, which switches the effect on and off, whichever effect you've got selected with this knob here. And then you've got these switches here as well. So you've got a store. If you flick that up, you can store whatever is in this loop, in loop 1. So that becomes then a backing track. And then if you flick this down, you've got backing track level, which allows you to turn the saved loop down independently of any new loops that you store, that you record after that, if that makes sense. So you can store a backing track, turn that down a little bit, and then record into that at a higher volume. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. If it doesn't, you can always use the comment section down below this video. I do like to try and answer as many questions as I can that I get down there. So finally on the top, we've got this serial sync switch. So serial mode means that loop 1 and loop 2 are independent of one another, and you can only play one at a time. So loop 1 could be a verse section, loop 2 could be a chorus section. And with loop 1 playing, if you click loop 2, then it'll stop loop 1 and start to play loop 2. Sync mode, which is what I'm interested in, is how a loop pedal would normally work when I'm using it, in that I can record different parts on loop 1 and loop 2, but have them playing together, and they can be synchronized or desynchronized, unsynchronized, whatever the correct terminology for that is. So that's everything that's on the top, but the interesting thing about this pedal is it has these dip switches on the back. Let me hold it up to this camera so that you can just see what I mean by those. So these four tiny switches that are in here, they change the way that this loop pedal performs. They change the way that it acts. And I've got a list here actually just to remind me what these do, because I did have to deep dive the the manual a little bit to figure out what they were for. So it's kind of interesting. By default, all of these switches are down, and switch 1, what that does is that defines the order of record, dub and play. So imagine the loop pedal's completely empty. As you press the loop 1 button, that is then in record mode, so it's recording the initial loop. As you press that button for a second time, you close off that loop and start it to play over in a loop. And by default, the second status when you press this and end that first loop, close that first loop, the second status will be play mode, which means anything that you play over that is not recording. You can play over the loop, but it's not recording back in, like stacked on top of the second loop. When you press that for a third time, then you enter dub mode, which means that it is recording on top of the loop that you initially put down. So I actually prefer the order of this to be record, dub, play, rather than the default record, play, dub, because I like to get all my loops down as quickly as possible. I like to get the vocals in as soon as I possibly can, because I'm very wary that playing live, the loop thing can become kind of boring for people as well. I don't think people mind so much on a YouTube video because they like to see the way that it's built up. But in a live situation, I prefer to go from record straight into dub mode. So I will be flicking switch 1 up because I prefer record, dub, play over record, play, dub. So switch number 2 is in the down position, the dub and the stop functions will happen immediately. So what that means is if you're halfway through the playback of your initial loop and you hit the loop button and put it into dub mode, you'll be recording from the moment you press the pedal, regardless of where you are in the loop. So if you've recorded, for example, eight bars down, and you want to start dubbing at bar number 4, you can just hit that pedal and start dubbing from the middle of the loop. If this switch is up, the second switch, the dub function will wait until the end of the cycle that's currently playing. So the loop LED indicator will start to flash to indicate that something's coming up, but it'll wait until the start of the loop before the dub mode is activated. And I believe it's the same with the stop function as well. So with the switch down, it'll stop instantly when you press that button. With the switch up, it'll wait until the end of the currently playing loop before the stop will be activated and everything will stop playing. And it's worth noting as well, in serial mode, the initial loop of loop 2 will wait until the end of the cycle. So if you've got one loop playing in loop 1, which is like your verse section, if you're in serial mode and you hit the loop 2 button, it will play out the remainder of loop 1 before it starts to go into loop 2. Essentially, you could see that as like a count-in so that you can keep your tempo in and stuff, but that will automatically happen regardless of where switch 2 is if you're in serial mode. Moving on to switch 3. Switch 3 in serial mode and sync mode does different things. So in serial mode, in the down position, switching between the loops will wait until the end of the cycle. So if you've got a verse section playing in loop 1 and you hit loop 2, with switch number 3 down, the loop 2 indicator will start to flash to indicate that it's coming, it's on its way, but it'll wait until loop 1 plays out its current loop before it'll switch, which is obviously ideal if you're using it as a verse and a chorus section. If you flick that switch up, the switching between the loops will happen immediately. So if you've got loop 1 playing and you hit loop 2, it will instantly stop loop 1 and start to play loop 2, regardless of where it is in the sort of loop, if that makes sense. In sync mode, that's a completely different functionality, and that's the synchronization of the 2 loops. So with the switch down, the 2 loops are synchronized. So the 1 beat of loop 1 will always match the 1 beat of loop 2, kind of like how I have my Boss RC500 set up, and I think the RC30 was locked to that. I don't think you could unsynchronize them. So, but you can, I believe, do multiples onto loop 2 of what's in loop 1. So if you record 8 bars into loop 1, you can record 16 bars into loop 2, but they'll still stay synchronized. So you'll just get 2 of loop 1 for 1 of loop 2. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, again, you can always ask questions in the comment section of this video. So with the switch number 3 up, if you're in sync mode, the loops are completely independent of each other. So you can record into loop 1, record something in, have that playing back, switch over to loop 2, record something completely different, and when you hit the loop 2 button for the second time, it will instantly close that off and start them looping completely independently of each other. That's obviously not ideal if you're using this pedal in the way that I would use it, but if you're doing ambient stuff with electric guitar, like I said before, then you might want those loops to be independent of each other to make like funky things where certain notes clash with each other, but not during every loop, if that makes sense. I've said that a lot, haven't I, if that makes sense, but hopefully this video does make sense. So the mode switch number 4, dip switch number 4, is for true bypass or buffered bypass. So in the down position, the pedal is in true bypass mode, and in the up position, it's in buffered bypass mode. And that's to do with whether you have a long cable between your guitar and the looper and your amp or your PA or whatever. And also if you've got a lot of pedals on your board, buffered bypass might be preferable over true bypass. I don't really know that much about that. I've not really played around with true bypass versus buffered bypass, but I've heard a lot of people talk about it with regards to pedal board setup. But I'm fairly new to the pedal board thing. I've always had my acoustic pedal board, but yeah, supposedly in true bypass mode, it can so noise can be introduced if you've got loads of pedals or loads of cable. But yeah, I'm going to just leave that on true bypass unless I notice that there's loads of noise, in which case I may switch over to buffered bypass. But I've waffled enough. What I'm going to do is get this thing plugged in and have a little mess with it and see how it performs. So I'll be back with you in a second. So I'm just going to be showing the very basic functions of the Ditto X4 in this demo. I've got the setup very, very simple. So it's a guitar cable from my acoustic guitar into the mono input of the X4, and then another guitar lead out of the mono output straight into my audio interface. For monitoring, I'm using headphones so that there's no speakers in the room to bleed into the microphone that I'm using to talk into. So very, very simple sort of setup. I've described what all the buttons and the switches and the knobs do. So I'm going to do a quick demo into the 2 loops in sync mode with Ed Sheeran's I See Fire. I hope I don't get any copyright strikes, but if I do, it's not a biggie really, is it? So loop 1, currently we're in standard mode, sort of default mode with all the dip switches down. So we should be in record, play, dub order. I actually prefer record, dub, play, but I'm going to, just for the purposes of this video, go in with the switch down and then I'll switch it over and show you the difference. So 2, 3, 4. Timing's a little bit off there, but you can see that we're in play mode now because the LED indicator is green. If we press that again, it should go red or orange or something like that to indicate that we're in dub mode. But currently, if I play anything, if I do anything over the top of that, none of that's recorded. And you'll notice as well, when it gets to the end of the loop, the LED flashes. See that little flash? That indicates that the loop is playing over again. So if we press again, we should get the red thing. And that's how we loop over that. And for the second part, I'm going to just chuck the capo on the guitar. Obviously the looping here isn't the best of qualities, but if I keep redoing it every time I make a mistake, this video is going to take quite a long time to make. So into loop 2, that will start to record. It'll start to loop instantly when we press it. So our timing needs to be pretty much on, but the two loops are synchronized, so they will stay in sync with each other. So as you can see, that's straight into play mode again. If we want to put some chords on, go again. And then we press stop and it stops both. If you want to stop just one or the other, you have to double tap on the loop itself. So both of these, and then double tap will stop that. Double tap will stop that, and stop both. So very, very straightforward. I'm not going to move on to the effects just yet because I want to switch over the dip switch 1. I want to switch it to the up position so that we're in record dub play mode. It's a bit annoying that it starts to play when you clear these as well. Very irritating, but maybe there is a way of clearing it without it doing that. So I'm going to flick the dip switch over. Just give me 1 second. So dip switch number 1 is now in the up position, which I much prefer in a live situation because it allows me to get the loops down a lot faster. So I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm just going to pop the capo up there so I can redo this. So we should be able to go straight from one into the other, like something like this. 2, 3, 4. See how much faster that is? I can go straight from one to the other, then I can chuck the capo back on. And same on loop 2, so. So yeah, very straightforward. Very straightforward, and I just think that that's a better setup than the default. And I've got to be honest, on the Boss RC 500, everything that these dip switches do can be done in the menu. So where the Ditto X4 is kind of marketed a lot, all the videos that I've seen have mentioned these dip switches, and I suppose they kind of have to because they affect things that are quite important. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's a good way of laying it out, really. I'm not sure if I like it or not. So I'm going to demonstrate. Let me just clear these. I'm going to demonstrate switch 3's function now. So in serial mode, which we'll switch to now, we're going to play a verse and a chorus part in. So in serial mode, I should be able to do like a 1, 2, 3, 4. And obviously that went straight into dub mode because of switch 1, but we'll just keep it really simple. So we've got obviously loop 1, yeah, no points for guessing what the song is. It's a bit of an obvious one, but into loop 2. So how switch 3 currently is, the loop will wait till the end of the cycle regardless of when we press the loop 2 button. So if we wait for it to come round and then press it now, it's going to wait till that finishes. And then straight away we'll be recording. see how handy that is to be able to just play over the top. So anyway, I'm completely waffling there. So switch 3, if it's in the up position, in this serial mode, switching between those two loops will happen immediately. So as you can see, as I just demonstrated, if one of the loops playing, if I press loop 2, it won't play loop 2 until loop 1 has finished its current cycle. So because it's flashing there, now it'll change, because that's the end of the cycle. Same the other way round. It will wait till the end of the cycle and then it will switch back, which could be, obviously that's the ideal way, I would say, to have it running in serial mode. See? It also, yeah, the stop. Yes, it is. It's the switch and the stop is affected by that switch. So yeah, in the up position, the stop and the switch will happen immediately as you press it. And switch 3, if you're in sync mode, means that the loops are synchronized to one another. If it's in the up position, they are not synchronized to each other. They are independent of each other. So if I flick it up, I'll show you what I mean. So essentially now with that, hang on, let me straighten that a little bit. With that way up, the switch should happen immediately. So you see the difference? So, and yeah, as I said, in sync mode, what that should do is, make them not synchronized at all. So if you made like that kind of loop, if you wanted something in time with that, like some kind of a beat, you'd have to be bang on. Can you hear that it's starting to drift because those loops are not in time with each other at all? So that would be useful for like ambient electric guitar things. But for example, you like, I can't do it on an acoustic guitar, but they're so far out that you could do like a like that, and then do like a you can hear that they're completely independent of each other. Anyway, yeah, you know what? I don't mind this pedal. I really like the way it looks, and I really like the way that it sits on a pedal board, but it is quite big for what it can do. And as I said, the things that the dip switches do can be done a lot easier with the Boss RC500. Just by deep diving the menu, and you can also set up presets as well. So depending on the memory that you're on, you can have the settings completely different, so you can easily switch between them. So For today, I'm not going to go through any more of the features of the Ditto X4. I think I've gone through most of them, and if you've got any questions, you can always throw them in the comment section down below. I do like to answer as many questions as I can. But I'm just going to get back to my desk to turn this, to sort of sign out of this video, so to speak. So closing thoughts on the Ditto X4. I really do like this pedal, actually. It's very well made. It's got a proper robust chassis made of metal. So it does feel like something that you're going to have for years and years and years. I'm not sure, though, that it will be replacing my RC500, purely because the versatility of this thing for its compact size is quite astonishing. And I know the menus can be a little bit tricky to deep dive in here because of the little digital screen and stuff. But once you've got it set to your mode, it's kind of very straightforward. And also I like the way that if you do have multiple ways that you would want to use these pedals, like serial and sync mode and that kind of thing, you can store those into the memories and you can easily just flick between different modes, or different, you could call them profiles in a way, I suppose. So I think I will be sticking for now with the RC500, but I've got to say, I've been very tempted by the RC600 for quite some time, and actually they were released at pretty much the same time, the RC500 and the RC600, and I was sort of I was in two minds whether to just go all in and buy the RC600. And I've said in previous videos as well that the reason I went for this thing ultimately was just its compact size. So I am very tempted by the RC600, particularly for the YouTube channel. I think I could do more versatile things with it. But for now, I'll be sticking with the RC500. And I've had a lot of requests for loop stuff recently since going back to full-time music and YouTube stuff. So that'll be coming in the coming weeks. But what are your thoughts? How do you like the way that the X4 is shaping up? Do you like the look of it? Any more questions about it? And also, while we're here, while I've got your attention, if you've got any song suggestions for me to do with a looper to then do a tutorial on, I know a lot of you that watch these videos really like the loop tutorials and you've asked to have them back. Give me some suggestions in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear from you. That's all for this video. As I always say, make sure that you're subscribed by hitting the subscribe link down below if you're not already. And thanks for being here. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.